nice that Shotki brought up Leo O'Neill's name and spirit. This poem is written by our own Leo O'Neill, and she is writing this from her own unique perspective and for her own indigenous heritage, which has already been mentioned. Everybody hear me all right? Water's Voice, Earth's Heartbeat by Leo O'Neill. We are born of the waters, the first tears of the earth, a sacred flow of boundless worth. Not just a resource tapped and drained, but the very blood in our blue veins. Grandmother water in every stream reflects the Creator's ancient dream. The rivers sing, the oceans roar, life's tapestry woven shore to shore. The cedar drinks, the salmon leaps, the eagle soars where water sleeps. A web of life, each thread entwined, when waters weep all of humankind. And every creature, great and small, will feel the ache and hear the call. For balance lost, for spirits grieved, for promises broken long believed. We carry the stories etched in stone of stolen waters, rights unknown, the poison flow, the dammed up way, a wound inflicted day by day, our sacred sites now drowned and deep. While thirsty lands their secrets keep, but from the depths a whisper rises, a strength so great that it never dies. A memory held in every drop, a seed of hope that will not stop. For rebirth comes when waters mend, when respect and justice transcend. Let us listen closely to the earth's deep sigh. Let healing waters purify. Let ancient wisdom guide our hand to reclaim the promise of this land, to honor the flow, the sacred source, and walk together a renewed course. For in the waters clear and bright lies the future bathed in light.
All right, now a reflection by our Grace Marvin.
And I'd like to add something to the water story. Water can also be a crier, and that is for Anna. We so honor Anna, and we are so sorry about what's happening to her. Okay, but my presentation is going to be something that Julian helped me do, reflections on climate change's effects on water, air, and dirt. Climate change, that is the heating up of our planet, means that our Earth is literally drying the dirt that is essential in providing food to humans and nearly all beings. Moreover, for every 1 degree Fahrenheit in temperature, the atmosphere holds 4% more water vapor, leading to a paradoxical seesaw of drought and wildfires, as well as major floods and hurricanes. Basically, water is moving from the land to the ocean. While that land is drying up and causing increasing crop failures, starvation, mass social migration, and social conflict. At the same time, we are seeing that climate change is melting glaciers, resulting in wet and wild winds and rising oceans that harm or destroy many coastal communities around the world. Thus, we must use far less gas, coal, and oil, since these fuels heat the planet, while we must promote those farmers who are caring for the soil and are avoiding these fuels. While the Trump regime is destroying the U.S. government's EPA, or Environmental Protection Agency, and NOAA, or National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, we should be promoting EPA's previous excellent work in fighting climate change. Our current American king and his rubber stampers are totally denying climate change, since that would not enable many of their rich friends from becoming even richer. Meanwhile, our planet suffers. And of course, we citizens also must work hard to protect the water we still have, even while the earth is drying. Water-preserving projects and campaigns often require citizen action. Here in California and across the country and the globe, we should oppose projects likely to harm ground or surface water, such as dams that many corporate farmers are promoting. Instead, our dams, and those in other countries, should be removed because they endanger land and waterways and harm small farming and fishing. Take, for example, the dams once killing fish on the Klamath River in Oregon. It took decades of persistent fighting by tribes and environmental organizations to remove those dams and restore the Klamath River. I think it was just last year. The 4 dams had harmed the livelihood of Native Americans while dooming their fishing for many decades. Let's fight current bad policies while recognizing the value of the prior administration's infrastructure and investment in preserving our planet. The current administration is preventing the earlier planned expenditure of $10 billion worth of local water projects. For example, cleanup of water pipes and water itself, and likely denying related federal grants and loans. We can better protect freshwater species with policies promoting free-flowing rivers rather than dams. One example nearby is the proposed Delta Tunnel with its demand for water, including a possible 18-foot rise of the Shasta Dam tied in with the construction of a Temperance Flat Dam on the San Joaquin River. Of course, globally, our different nations should work together instead of having to fight U.S. tariff policies. We need as many countries as possible to address climate change. We are recognizing that climate change has major negative effects on water and dirt, and thus on all life forms, including humans and other animals and wildlife, as well as vegetables, flowers, trees, plants, and sea life. Let us consider addressing our senators, if not our current local congressmen, and joining or supporting organizations that can inform us about how to confront water issues and even dirt. There are many, including Earth Justice, Food and Water Watch, Greenpeace, Chico's Aqua Alliance, and of course, the one that I'm involved in, the Sierra Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. I'm going to share with you an excerpt from Tribal Water Stories. Don Hankins is a professor of geography and planning at Chico State and a Plains Miwok traditional cultural practitioner. He wrote this piece, Water as Sacred. Water is a resource frequently taken for granted. However, without it, we would be unable to survive. California Indians have developed a cultural appreciation for water that is reflected in the diverse cultures, languages, and stories and songs of the region. From time immemorial, there has existed an obligation to care for the gifts of the landscape. The gifts of plentiful natural resources are not only vital to our human well-being, but also of other organisms. Presumably, this relationship with water has existed for millennia with little change. However, the events following the arrival of Spanish, Mexican, and American cultures have disrupted the roles and relationships between California Indians and water, and frequently the reciprocal respect for water has been lacking. At present, society as a whole grapples with the issues of developing a sustainable future for our water. Now is the time for California Indians to reassert themselves as caretakers of our vital resources. While ideal models of successful partnerships with indigenous communities regarding water may not exist in California, the successful development of an equitable and sustainable water future necessitates the inclusion of California Indians as a critical piece. Traditional relationships to water. Traditional laws recognized by Native California are based upon the natural order. First and foremost, the recognition that the law of the land dictates the relationship to the use and management of natural resources, including water. A primary tenet of this recognition is that ownership of water or land by an individual or tribe is non-existent. Rather, the individual or tribe belongs to the resource. With this said, the individual or tribe has a specific obligation to ensure the water and lands are cared for and respected, and the responsibilities for these areas are passed down from generation to generation. Rules broadly recognized throughout the land guided where people could and could not reside, swim, fish, or otherwise interact with water. Failure to abide by these laws could result in dire outcomes for those who disregarded them. In a landscape where seasonal and prolonged droughts have always been an issue, the development of cultural practices to ensure a sustainable use of water had to have been in place. The cultural relationship to water is evident throughout California's diverse tribal communities. Water may be considered the backbone of tribal societies. Ancient tribal societies were organized into moeties, or clans, which frequently had some reverence to water and reference back to traditional law, whereby the members of that moiety or clan had responsibilities to look after matter pertaining to water. Nearly every tribe has traditional stories about water. Tribes also have recognized sacred water, such as springs, wetlands, lakes, which serve as places for story, ceremony, healing, and other purposes. Under traditional law, these places are frequently those protected or not accessible by the general population of the tribe. Protection of these places ensured the long-term viability of the source and ensured the quality of the water would be highest. Now, academics have developed the terms environmental determinism and possibilism to describe human environmental interactions. Environmental determinism and possibilism. The former describes most tribal environmental relationships, whereby the development of the culture is reflected in the celebration of resources from the local government. Conversely, The latter describes how a tribe has enhanced its environment to support its cultural needs. Ancestral California Indians recognized the influences of their actions upon the environment. For example, the routine and patterned burning of the landscape was recognized to maintain flows in many streams, which today are seasonal. It was known that the burning of certain vegetation communities at the appropriate time would reduce evapotranspiration, that's thus enabling soil moisture to percolate deeper into the aquifer and enhance stream flows. This traditional knowledge application facilitated overall resource management further to ensure optimal conditions to support plants, animals, and particularly fisheries. A variety of associated culturally significant plants and animals exist, which historically were abundant but now in decline. While global declines in biodiversity are frequently linked to habitat loss, fragmentation, conversion, and exploitation, in the case of many of our aquatic species, factors of decline are frequently linked to habitat conversion, altered hydrology, altered water chemistry, and barriers to passage. The historic and contemporary declines of some species are more directly linked to environmental change. For instance, salmonid fisheries existed along the west coast south to Baja California, approximately 15,000 years ago. However, with warming following glaciation, the conditions suitable for salmonids to persist in many southern streams have disappeared. The cumulative impacts of continuing climate change in stream flows, barriers, and loss of estuarine rearing habitat all pose a threat to the persistent survival of these fish. Now, contemporary relationships and impacts. Keep in mind this is coming from a professor. Due to the settlement history of California, California Indians have been displaced from traditional lands and have generally become disconnected from opportunities to fulfill obligations to land and water. For many tribal people, the fight to preserve cultural sites and culturally significant natural resources is a challenging and continual process. For the state constitution suggests water is a public resource not to be owned or sold. There are numerous actions carried out by federal, state, local, and private entities, which seem to operate counter to that notion. Where traditional societies protected and respected water resources, contemporary water managers appear to not value the holistic appreciation of the indigenous for water resources and associated features. To begin with, the reclamation of floodplains beginning in the mid-1800s destroyed ecosystems services such as water filtration and habitat for fish and wildlife. The advent of the various water projects throughout the state has led to conflict between indigenous peoples and the larger society over impacts to cultural sites, the use and abuse of water and associated biotic resources. The construction and management of dams has frequently created barriers to dispersal and destruction, alteration of habitat for culturally important fisheries and wildlife species. The prized fisheries of California streams have all been affected by direct and indirect impacts of dam and water project operations. Much of contemporary water management issues tend to focus on the delta, which you alluded to, Grace, as a proposed means of improving water quality in the delta and conserving fisheries and wildlife habitat. New infrastructure improvements have been proposed. The peripheral canal. While there are valid reasons for and against such a system, it does not address the larger issues which continue to contribute to degraded water quality and habitat loss from source to sink. The choices our society makes for land use, waste disposal within the entire catchment all represent feedbacks to our water. While some tribal groups have developed working relationships with water and natural resource management entities, primarily for access to sites for cultural purposes, the recognition of tribal people as partners in water and resource management is still lacking. Similarly, respect for traditional ownership rights to land and water are broadly ignored. The rights of private individuals and corporations is furthering the abuse of water use privileges. Specifically, we see emerging markets where individuals and corporations seek profit from water transfers and water banking schemes, which you mentioned in the farmers, which provide little regard to impacts to the source or the long-term sustainability of the resource. The problems associated with water infrastructure and management is further confounded by the fact that water is, in fact, a finite resource. Our climate delivers a limited supply of snow, precipitation, and other forms of water to our landscape. Regardless of how many reservoirs, diversions that are built or manipulated, we cannot create more water. Despite this fact, it is alarming that the population of California continues to grow at an alarming rate. During the drought crisis in the 80s, when the voters of California first encountered the peripheral canal concept, the state population was about 20 million. Today, it's approaching 40 million, twice. As a society, we have become better at water conservation, although there is certainly room for improvement. Beyond these issues of water and resource management of our aquatic systems are inundated with a diversity of non-native species and pathogens, which further degrade habitats and threaten the persistence of native species, invasive species, such as bullfrogs were introduced to our region as a commercial food resource. Sport fisheries have encouraged the management of some non-native species, including striped bass, whereas other introduced fish, including the northern pike, draw continuous attention as a management concern. And inadvertent introductions of species such as the New Zealand mud snail and the quagga mussels. You see the warnings at some of the lakes to clean your boat. They've been transported by boats inadvertently, and equipment anglers and other recreational users. That continues to damage our water. So, in conclusion, future directions in consideration of the contemporary status of water and associated resources, it is foreseeable that Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, famous saying, "Whiskey is for drinking, and water is for fighting over. They may be taken to a new level. Specifically, if our fisheries vanish, the rivers and lakes are more degraded, and our water is owned and controlled by individuals and corporations, there will be just cause for uncivil acts. Certainly, this is not a phenomenon isolated to California. As a society, Californians need to assess and prioritize the past, present, and future of our water. For Native Californians, this means asserting ancestral law, which is an obligation to care for the Earth's resources. Fulfillment of this may take many steps, including being active in land acquisition, conservation and stewardship, reestablishing water rights, and restoring impaired systems from the source to sink. It will also require forming partnerships with other tribes and public and private entities. Education is critical to ensure that. Number one, tribal youth understand both traditional and academic aspects of natural resource management. Number two, the broader society becomes familiar with the values tribal societies place on natural resources. In the end, successful partnerships in collaboration or co-management should serve as a model. Now, that's a lot to digest, but I think in it there's a good message in regards to how we feel and appreciate the interconnectedness of life as you use. And our brothers and sisters that were here long before any of us ever arrived, and how they value water. So water is sacred. So I'm going to show you a brief video now of the largest dam removal project in U.S. history. Was completed October 2nd on Klamath River in southern Oregon and northern California. 4 dams were taken out, allowing adult salmon to swim all the way up to the Klamath River from the Pacific Ocean into more than 400 miles of newly reopened habitat. It'll show you before and after pictures. Which brings us now to the offertory.
Nice photos, Wayne. Did you take these photos? Some of them, yeah, that's great. Our offering is one of the ways we take our ministry into the world. 25% of our non-pledged plate offering this morning or this quarter goes to the UUA Disaster Relief Fund with an earmark for fellowships that were affected by the Southern California fires. Your donations and contributions are appreciated. They keep us going and allow us to continue our ministries, including our social justice committee that works on issues such as water issues.